Good morning. My name is Mrs. Portillo and I'm a religious studies teacher here. When I first sat down to look at the lyrics of this year's theme song, one line immediately stood out to me. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. Not only is it my favorite part of the hand motions you all do, I love it, the little bull devil horns, but also it reminded me of one of the most important and helpful concepts I've ever learned about, and one of my favorite lessons to teach my senior classes, St. Ignatius's discernment of spirits. Long story short, this guy Ignatius got injured in a battle back in the 16th century. And while recovering in bed, he started to realize that when he listened to certain voices in his head, voices that were critical of himself or others, he felt really bad. But when he listened to stories about the saints or about Jesus in the Bible, he felt really good. He started to discern between what sorts of thoughts made him feel more alive and positive, and which ones made him feel worse about himself and the world around him. He began to name these spirits as either good and being of God, or evil and not of God, and decided that he only wanted to listen to the voices that brought him more life, more joy, more virtue. He wrote extensively about this process, and I could go on and on about the brilliant insights he had about human nature and how to lead a fulfilling life, but for that you have to take my senior vocations class. Today, I just want to share how and why I find these teachings so helpful, and why you might too. When I was in high school, I started to hear some critical voices that may sound familiar to many of you. I looked around at my classmates and never felt smart enough in the classroom, skilled enough on the soccer field, and most of all, I never felt pretty or skinny enough. I would look at my soccer teammates and wonder how they felt so confident and comfortable tucking in their shirts before games when I hated that it accentuated my belly. My senior year, I dreaded our costume fittings for the fall musical because I didn't like the way my thighs looked in my leotard. The voices were ever present, but I never wanted to tell anyone what I was feeling or hearing. Sometimes it was because I felt alone in these thoughts. Everyone else seemed so confident in their bodies. And other times, like when all my friends were sharing their diets to prepare for the upcoming formal, I felt like maybe these thoughts were just normal and not worth bringing up to anyone. But as time went on, the thoughts became more and more present, and eventually devolved into a years-long pattern of disordered eating and body dysmorphia that dominated much of my high school and college careers. One of Ignatius's most brilliant insights, which is echoed in a lot of current psychology, is that those negative voices always want to stay a secret, because when they are spoken aloud or shared with trusted someone, they lose their power. This is why talk therapy can be so transformative, and why we do small group sharing on our retreats. When we trust others to carry our burdens with us, it really does lighten our load. For me, it wasn't until I was working abroad after college that I found myself in such a welcoming and safe community that I finally found the courage to speak aloud some of the negative thoughts and behaviors that had been secretly haunting me. I finally found a home where I could be myself, warts and all, and where I could actually hear and listen to that other voice, the voice of God, that told me I was loved, that I was enough. Now today, after much therapy and the incredible support of family and friends, I'm more than a decade into recovery, and those critical voices know better than to try to use body image to make me feel bad about myself. But that doesn't mean they've stopped. Instead, they prey on what continue to be my insecurities. You aren't an attentive enough mother. You aren't as hardworking or creative as other teachers. You aren't a generous enough friend. I hear versions of these voices every day, but unlike when I was in high school, now I know what to do. I share them with someone so that they lose their power. And let me tell you, it's really good to have best friends who are religion teachers, because we actually have an emoji specifically for this. There's a little red siren emoji that we send each other in our group texts whenever someone shares something they're feeling bad about that is making them think less of themselves. We use it to mean evil spirit alert. What you're saying right now is not coming from God. Most of the time, these thoughts aren't true, and all of the time, these thoughts aren't helpful. We all make mistakes, and it's important to pay attention to the crumminess of hurting someone's feelings or doing something genuinely wrong. But when the thoughts start attacking you as a person, then that's when you have to throw up the red siren and say, nope, I'm not going to listen to this, because I know this is not good for me. and then you can go a step further and tell someone about it. A student recently shared in my class that she tends to keep her problems to herself because she doesn't want anyone to think of her differently. So she shows up every day pretending to be perfect. Well, that doesn't sound much like home to me. Home is not the place where you wear your fanciest clothing and a ton of makeup. Home is where you get to wear sweatpants and be comfy and relaxed. And so while we all can't wear sweatpants to school, we can still create a homey atmosphere by not requiring each other to be perfect. Being brave enough to share our worries, our fears, our insecurities with each other, and to listen when others need support. In today's reading, we are told we can choose between life and death, good and evil, which I know is a pretty intense reading. But for me, I see myself making these choices every day. When I choose not to listen to all those critical thoughts I'm having, saying I'm a bad mom, a bad teacher, a bad friend, a bad partner, and instead focus my energy on just being present and being myself, I am choosing life over death. I am choosing good over evil. And so I'm going to challenge us to all do that today. As soon as I sit down from this reflection, I'm going to be flooded with negative voices about how I overshared and how much Mrs. Cruz hated my speaking style. But I am not going to listen to that evil spirit. And in a moment, when Ms. Caputo starts sharing all the incredible accomplishments of so many in our community, and you start to hear a voice that belittles you because you aren't being asked to stand, don't listen to that evil spirit. Or if you are called to stand and you hear a voice that diminishes your accomplishments or makes you feel ashamed, don't listen to that evil spirit. And beyond that, whenever you hear a voice that makes you feel anything less than someone who is made in the image and likeness of God, don't listen to that evil spirit. Instead, choose life. Choose to listen to the voice of God, whether it comes from a friend, a teacher, a partner, a parent, or even from yourself, that says you are loved, you are enough. So don't pay any mind to those demons that try to fill you with fear. And always remember that you are not alone, because together we really can make this place our home. Thank you.